I've got Harvey Golub here, the former head of American Express, so much more, one of the legends of Wall Street, and his take on this. Harvey, I'm looking at all of this and the reaction, and I'm beginning to think it's off to a promising start. Things could change, but after a very divisive election, you see both sides trying to reach across the aisle, even within the Republican Party, Republicans trying to reach across to him. What do you think?
I think that's a good thing to happen.
Do you believe it?
It'll break down fairly quickly on the policies, but it's
even within the Republican Party.
No, I think they'll come together. The things that Donald Trump said he was going to do are things that Republicans can get around.
What's the first thing you think he should do?
Regulations.
Really? Not even cutting taxes?
Regulations he can do on his own without any law. All he has to do is reverse a number of the regulations that Obama did. He has a chance to name a huge number of appointments, which now, under the rules that Harry Reid set up, all they need is a majority in the Senate, not 60 votes anymore. So they'll be able to get all of his appointees done quickly on the SEC, on regulatory bodies.
And you were making a push for this to make sure they'd have control of the Senate, where they would do that, and they continue to have control. That is, the party in charge.
So, you know, the rules that Harry Reid set up for his convenience are going to come back to haunt the Democrats now, when the Republicans will use the same rules to staff the administration. They'll be able to do it a lot more quickly than the Bushes were able to do, which took them, it took the second George Bush almost a year to staff his administration.
Well, remember, he had what was it, Jeffords of Vermont, who went from Republican to Independent or Democrat, so all of a sudden he wasn't dealing with a Republican Senate anymore. But let me ask you a little bit, and maybe this is mixing your corporate background. When you took over American Express, and you first took over, you have a brief period there at the start to send a message, to get stuff done. A lot is made of the president's first 100 days. I guess that goes back to FDR. But we've judged presidents since and how they do in that first roughly 2.5 months. So if you are Donald Trump, January 20th, you're in, play out what you do.
I get as much staff as I can in all of the administrative bodies, right, so that they can start to change policies. I'd reverse all of the regulations that Obama put in place that are impeding growth. Donald Trump's major message now is, how do we get growth in this economy? The difference between a 2% growth rate and a 4% growth rate is enormous. And the effect of that on the economy, on jobs, on people's attitudes is also enormous.
But wouldn't it be more dramatic for most folks looking at it if they saw their taxes cut immediately?
You can do them exactly at the same time.
Oh, simultaneously.
Simultaneously. There are a number of tax plans that have been put together by Paul Ryan's groups. They're all flatter, broader, more consumption-oriented, and with fewer exceptions. Almost any of them would be better than the mess we have now. The corporate tax system can be revised fairly easily, and now all you need is 50 votes in the Senate. So that can get done. That can get done.
You know, there are still a lot of Tea Partiers left on Capitol Hill, and a lot of them are very leery of spending. Donald Trump has indicated that he has big infrastructure plans, big plans to boost defense spending, without being very clear on how that would be paid for. He's talked about taking money that's in havens overseas and incentivizing it back, and that might pay for some of this. But that gets back to a question I asked at the outset, Harvey, about getting along with his own party, because there are some parts of that party that aren't too keen on worsening those deficits.
Yeah, I'm a Tea Party person. I'm not keen on increasing deficits as well. But investments do have to get made in infrastructure.
So you could live with things getting a little worse in the beginning if you're starting to get like what Reagan had, the bang and the revenue for the buck down the road.
If he does the regulatory thing, if he does some tax reform, particularly on the corporate side, I think people will go along with spending on infrastructure, as long as it's not bike paths in Evanston, Illinois, but it's real infrastructure.
What do you have against bike paths? What do you have against bike paths?
I love bike paths, but if people in Evanston want a bike path, let them pay for it.
Help me with the Wall Street reaction to all of this. When it looked like Hillary was going to win, it went up. When it looked like, even last night, it was all falling apart, it was tumbling and then careening. It's since stabilized today. What's going on?
Well, as I recall, last night the futures got down to about 800 points down. And I'm not sure exactly what future they were talking. It was probably a three-month future. By the time I got up this morning, I think it was down to 300. And by the market opening, it was flat, and then the market was up. So
that's pretty extreme.
It was an overreaction initially.
Well, is this gain an overreaction? Is this gain an overreaction? The fact that we're up almost 200 on the Dow.
I don't know. Yeah. I think the market could do very well. Just the regulations, if he deals with that alone, that helps healthcare, that helps consumer durables, that helps manufacturing, that helps energy. Major sectors. If we start to do something about Dodd-Frank, that will help the financial sector. And Dodd-Frank is a bloody disaster. We do away with Obamacare, will be an enormous boost to small businesses in this country. Those things can have an immediate effect, or a short-term effect.
Well, how do you think Wall Street in general will do? We've had a long bull market, and a lot of people say bull markets can't run on forever. This one's a little long in the tooth. It wouldn't matter if it was Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton getting elected. It's going to correct.
Well, it may. Yeah. But I would trade a bull market for growth in the economy. I really want to see underlying growth in the economy. I want to see people get back to jobs.
I like the way you said that. I would trade a bull market for growth in the economy.
That's the way I feel. I'm an American before I'm an asset manager.
And normally, to get growth in the economy, eventually the market will follow suit.
Ultimately.
Yeah.
But let
Do you
it be
like the market right now? Would you buy the Dow at these levels? Would you buy the S&P at these levels?
Well, last night about 3 in the morning, I sent an email to my advisor, said, we got to get ready to buy futures in the morning. But by the morning, it wasn't worth it anymore.
Your biggest worry in those first 100 days of the Trump administration?
My biggest worry is that something happens in trade. International trade is important to our economic growth and to the growth of economies around the world, and they are net winners to an economy. The problem is that there are losers as well, and we have to figure out how we handle the businesses and the people that are on the losing side of an overall trade win, so that we can go ahead with trade treaties that make sense for us.
All right. Well, throughout the campaign, Trump got a very populist message there that he was almost anti any trade deal, or at least the deals we've seen. Does that lead you to think that we could get into some nasty trade wars?
We could, if we do something like, you know, Smoot-Hawley back in the 30s. If we start to block world trade in some significant way, which I don't think will happen, that would have a negative effect. In all of the discussion, Niels, we're putting together two things that don't belong together. One has to do with trade balance, and the other has to do with companies that move out of the United States. And they're fundamentally different factors affecting them. The reasons why companies leave is because their costs of operation here are too high.
Right.
Regulations too high, taxes are too high, labor mobility is too low.
So, real quickly, and the producers are going crazy, but you're such a great guest. Let's say Ford continues going along with this plan to build a lot of small cars in Mexico. Donald Trump has said that those cars come back here and they try to sell them, 35% tariff. Of course, you and I pay that tariff. It's not the company. Do you think he means that, or do you think just the threat alone will get them to stop, or he provides the environment in this country where it's not even necessary for a company to move?
You do the latter, but it's not just up to him to make that environment. But you can't build the walls to keep companies or people here. You've got to have an environment where they choose to stay here, and that can be done.
Okay, Harvey, great seeing you again. Thank you very, very much.